You're on Meet the Press with Foreign Minister Stephen Smith, and good morning to our panel, Jennifer Hewitt from the Australian. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
And Clinton Porteous from the Courier Mail. Good morning, Clinton.
Good morning.
Much depends on the outcome of the US election for the direction of foreign policy, especially for our troops in Afghanistan. Both candidates believe it's integral to combating terrorism, but it's not clear exactly what the future shape of their commitment would be.
Senator Obama was wrong about Iraq and the surge. He was wrong about Russia when they committed aggression against Georgia. And in his short career, he does not understand our national security challenges.
It's true. There's some things I don't understand. I don't understand how we ended up invading a country that had nothing to do with 9/11, while Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda are setting up base camps and safe havens to train terrorists to attack us.
Minister, there are increasing doubts that military victory is at all possible in Afghanistan, and yet Australia is probably going to be asked to increase our troop commitment. How do we handle that?
Well, we've made it clear that we're not proposing to increase our current complement of nearly 1,100 officers in Oruzgan province in Afghanistan. I think what is clear, I won't be drawn on who might win the United States election. We'll deal with whoever is thrown up. But what is clear, I think, from the comments of both Senators McCain and Obama is that there will be an increased and renewed and refreshed United States commitment to Afghanistan and also Pakistan. That's an unambiguously good thing because Afghanistan and the Pakistan area remain the current hotbed of international terrorism, and it has to be met by the international community.
So what do we have? Just 1,100 troops there just as symbols of our commitment without going any further?
Well,
That's
it's not a symbol. We're the largest non-NATO contributor, and in addition to our forces, we have a substantial capacity building, humanitarian assistance and development assistance into Afghanistan. We've got to do two things. We have to secure peace and security, but we've got to try and help build a nation. We've got to start making sure there is a joint international community effort on both fronts which address the terrible drugs problem, which build the Afghan state institutions, which deal with the corruption issues. They're the things which were discussed at the Bucharest conference and also the Afghan Donors Conference in Paris earlier this year. And they're the things the international community is now requiring to be done.
Yeah, easy to say, but it's obviously not happening.
Well, no one's suggesting that Afghanistan is anything other than difficult and dangerous and a long-term issue and problem. But we believe it's absolutely essential for the international community and also in Australia's national interest that we're there. There's no doubt that this is the current centre of international terrorism. And if we don't meet it, then what we know about international terrorism in the modern world is it moves quickly. Mobile, moves quickly north to Europe and south to Southeast Asia. We've already been on the adverse receiving end of terrorism in Southeast Asia. We don't want to be on the receiving end again.
Mr Smith, on another trouble spot, Zimbabwe, there was such hope that Robert Mugabe was going. It's now a power-sharing arrangement with Mr Tsvangirai. That looks to be going bad. I think you've talked before about we want to give more money if they can move towards democracy. Surely that would be a bad move when the power sharing looks to be coming unstuck?
Well, despite our long-standing criticism of the brutal Mugabe regime, Australia has provided humanitarian assistance, a lot of it for food, to the Zimbabwe people directly. It's about $9–10 million a year. I've made it clear that if we see on-the-ground implementation of the democratic will of the Zimbabwe people, a government that might actually be dealing with serious issues, we will contemplate further humanitarian and development assistance.
But surely that must be in doubt now, mustn't it?
Well, we urge the parties to come to a resolution. It is a good sign that they've both called on former South African President Mbeki to seek to mediate, but they've got to get on with it. Our starting point, of course, is that Mr Mugabe walks off the stage. He's not proposing to do that. There's a power-sharing arrangement. They've now got to bring that to fruition. We've been waiting 3 months, and it's now 6 months since an election which saw Mr Tsvangirai get a majority of votes both in the parliamentary and the presidential election.
Mr Smith, before you talked about the economic crisis, looking particularly at your portfolio, I think one of the biggest spends is foreign aid. I think it was $3.7 billion. Now, the Rudd government has said it's going to up the foreign aid to 0.5% by 2015. Can you meet that still?
Well, we're currently on track to do that. It was a very clear and strong election commitment that we made. The Prime Minister and I are very strongly personally committed to it, and we think we can get there.
Is it responsible to be committed to that? Well, at this time when, look, pensioners would love more money, working mothers would love paid maternity leave. Can we afford to be giving $3.7 billion away?
We think it's very important that Australia is a good international citizen, and it's not giving money away. It's giving money away for the purpose of developing nation states in our region and throughout the world. That's an unambiguously good thing in our national interest. Making sure we don't have failed or difficult states in the Pacific is a good thing. Making sure we're doing the right thing in the Asian community is also a good thing. It helps our trade, it helps our investment, it helps the standing of Australia both economically and socially in the international community's eyes.
The situation in Thailand, one of our key Asian partners, seems to be deteriorating. On Tuesday, 2 were killed and more than 400 were injured in violent protests against the government in the capital, Bangkok. Similar ugly riots have occurred elsewhere in the country.
Minister, the situation does seem to be getting worse. What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, there's been a bit of calm in the last couple of days. It was very, very difficult in the course of the last week. We certainly continue to urge Australians not to go anywhere near demonstrations or gatherings, and we certainly again urge the Thai political leadership to resolve these issues lawfully and peacefully. And we certainly welcome very much the Chief of the Army indicating that he doesn't see a role for the military in terms of a military coup or military intervention.
All right. Nevertheless, the situation remains very unpredictable, and now we're going to have around the region, obviously, much worse economic conditions. Do you think that's really going to increase the threat of instability in the region?
Well, so far as Thailand is concerned, I think the Thais themselves have come to appreciate that in the past, military intervention rather than resolving these matters through a parliamentary or a political process hasn't actually helped them. And so, whilst they're going through a period of political difficulty, we do want them, and we're confident they can, resolve these issues through their parliamentary and political systems. Every country from time to time has political instability. What we want them to do is to meet that instability by respecting the law and by respecting peacefully their democratic institutions.
But Mr. Smith, are we going to see a rise of terrorism in the region, given what's happened, the economic problems sweeping through?
Well, we'll certainly see a rise of terrorism if Australia and the international community don't do two things. Firstly, meet that terrorism by force of military arms, but secondly, also address some of the factors which can give rise to support for extreme or ideological views. So not being a good development assistance partner does mean that there's less of a chance for better health and education outcomes in some difficult nation states. It's why we also invest a lot in our region in interfaith dialogue to make sure that we preach tolerance and respect of not just religious views but people's views generally.
Stephen Smith, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.